Welcome back to Seasoned Professional. I'm your host, Hannah Octavia. Today I'm speaking with an extraordinary woman whose resilience and determination are truly inspiring. Despite two life-altering injuries 30 years apart, she rebuilt trust in her body while navigating the challenges of teen pregnancy and single parenthood. Our conversation offered valuable insight into perseverance, positive self-talk, and the distinctions between therapy and coaching. It's an episode rich with wisdom. Please join me in welcoming Chloe Stevens. We all good to go, Elliot? All righty. So without further ado, thank you for coming on the podcast today. See, I haven't done this in like 3 weeks, so hold on. All righty. Without further ado, let's welcome to the podcast, Chloe Stevens. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. The first thing we kind of do on Seasoned Professional is we look at a childhood photo of yourself. So you've brought one in for us. Let's take a look at this one.
Okay, there we go.
All righty, it's fabulous. Do you want to show the cameras for us? And for those of us listening, what are we looking at?
Okay, so this is a picture of little Chloe when I think I was about 7, 8 years old. Mm-hmm. This is in a pub garden. I remember being there with my little sisters and my parents, probably outside with a little bottle of orange juice and a packet of ready salted crisps, doing what I absolutely loved to do most when I was little, and that was moving and cartwheeling and handstanding.
Amazing. So for any of us who are listening at the moment, we have a picture of Chloe at the age of about 8, you said?
I think 7, 8. Yeah.
7, 8. She's got 2 pigtails in her hair, and it looks like you're about to do a cartwheel, which
Most
is
definitely
a skill I actually never learned how to do, which is so horrendous of me. I still can't do a cartwheel. Isn't that terrible?
I don't think it's terrible.
I feel like that's the epitome of childhood, is doing the cartwheels and the monkey bars.
Yeah, and maybe handstands in a swimming pool.
Yeah, 100%. And then everyone would be like, oh, that's a 5 out of 10. That's a 7 out of 10. Amazing. So going back to your childhood, you said you had some siblings. Bring me through, where are you in that sibling dynamic? Are you the middle child, the oldest?
I'm the oldest of 3 girls.
Okay.
So I've got a younger sister, Lucy. She's 2 years younger than me. And I've got a sister, Emma, who's 6 years younger.
And did you have that typical big sister attitude towards them?
It's funny. I think I was probably a bit of a pain in the neck.
Do you think?
I think I was a little bit of a bossy boots.
Oh, okay.
Because I was the oldest.
Uh-huh.
But although I was the oldest, as we grew up,
Mm-hmm.
I was always the smallest.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Which was quite interesting, yeah, because trying to be the bossy one who knows everything, and when you're a little bit smaller is quite interesting.
Did people mistake you as being younger?
Sometimes.
Yeah. How did that make you feel?
How did it make me feel? Well, probably I didn't like it that much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My mum always used to say things like, well, the best things come in small packages, Chloe.
Fun-sized.
I see, fun size sounds good.
Yeah, fun size is great. It's like
But-
the little candy bars you get for Halloween.
Yeah.
It's fun-sized. It's perfect. That's what you can call yourself now.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold on to that, thanks.
So you're a little bit bossy towards your siblings. Did that kind of, as you said, bossy boots nature, did that kind of filter into other areas of your life? Were you like that in school, with your friends, or what kind of were you like in those different areas?
I think probably as a sister I was a bossy boots,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a little bit of a show off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I don't think that transpired in the same way when I was with my friends or at school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think I really wanted to fit in a bit more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when you mean fit in a little bit more, how do you mean? What did you want to fit in with?
The cool kids,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be loved, I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
not thought of as different in any way.
Were you thought of as different?
Internally,
Mm-hmm.
potentially,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think anybody else felt that way about me.
And what about it internally did you feel was different?
I can't really put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I think to how I am now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's a little bit of a ADHD tendency.
Okay.
But as a child, I just remembering, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be doing the right thing. I didn't want to be standing out.
You wanted to be good almost?
Maybe good. Yeah.
Tell me what your childhood was like, your home life. Was it happy?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago. But I remember spending a lot of time in the garden, practicing my handstands, collecting caterpillars, making potions with my sisters out of rose petals and talcum powder, that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Going to friends' houses and playing Murder in the Dark. That was a really good memory.
Murder in the Dark?
You've never played Murder in the Dark?
No. Sounds great, though.
Yeah, so you've got a group of people together. One of you you must have bits of paper. I haven't played it for years, since I was a child, but you decide who's going to be the murderer and who's going to be the detective.
Okay.
And then you turn the lights off. And my friend's parents had a really big house with 2 staircases.
Oh, perfect.
So we would be creeping around trying not to get murdered, because somebody would tap you on the back at some point and say, you've been murdered. And then this huge scream would come out of nowhere, and then the lights would get back on. You'd have to try and figure out who was the murderer.
That sounds fun. I like that.
It was really fun, but those are my memories from childhood, really.
Yeah, so very active, pretty positive from what I'm hearing.
Very, very active.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny how you don't recognize how active your childhood was until somebody asks you. But, I used to do gymnastics, swimming, diving.
Wow.
All different types of dance. So ballet, jazz, tap, modern.
Wow.
Horse riding.
Oh, my goodness.
So I suppose fairly privileged.
And do you think was the active endeavors that you did, was it something innate in you, or did your parents just sign you up for it?
I think, no, I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I was lucky that I was able to have that opportunity.
And tell me what your parents did.
Well, for work? Yeah, so my dad worked in insurance, but reinsurance. So he was insuring insurance companies.
Didn't even know that was a thing. Everyone needs insurance, apparently.
Yeah, so he did that. So he was working in London, out most of the day. And my mum did various different things. So she was a really good cook. So she worked in some restaurants doing some chefing.
Nice.
And then she went on to work in travel. But I remember my mum was around quite a lot of the time. So she fitted her work around us girls.
Yeah. Well, she probably had her hands full.
I think she probably did.
Yeah. And did you have a good relationship with your parents growing up?
I mean, probably up until the age of about 13, pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I think the rebellious Chloe might have come out to play a little bit. So maybe the relationships weren't quite as good as they could have been.
I see. Well, I think that's almost inevitable. There's always going to be a little bit of rebellion during those teenage years. And I do want to explore more on that. But going back to like the young childhood, Chloe, was there ever a dream that you had in terms of a career or what you wanted to do later in life?
I mean, I always wanted to be a ballet dancer. That was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But, and I'm sure we'll come to this later, I had a big injury, so I couldn't follow that dream. But I remember that the other things that I really wanted to do were that I wanted to be a newsreader.
Oh, fun.
Or a speech therapist.
Interesting. Why were those at the forefront of your mind?
I think it stems from, I used to go to speech and drama classes when I was a child.
Yes.
So probably from about the age of 6 to about 11 or 12. And so I was learning how to project my voice. I was learning to take pauses when I was speaking, use inflection, all that kind of thing. So I think I really enjoyed using my voice.
Interesting.
So I imagine that's where those aspirations came from.
Yeah, actually, now that you're saying that, you do have a very steady voice as you're speaking. Like there's no rush to it, which is quite nice. And it's not something that you initially realize, but now that you're saying it, yeah, you actually do have a very, very methodical, it's very flowy way of speaking.
And we did exams and festivals and that kind of thing.
Oh,
so
okay. Very
it was
cool.
building confidence and thinking about your posture and yeah.
Do you think that you lacked confidence before this course?
Probably a little bit. I'm not sure why I was, because I don't think I chose to go to those classes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I haven't thought about it for a long time until you asked me about the aspirations.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just trying to piece it together in my mind.
And what were you like in school? Were you like getting good grades? Were you super studious? What kind of did the teachers like you?
Do you know what? In primary school, so that was from the ages of like 5 till 11, I loved school.
Okay.
And I was liked by the teachers, but I think I was always, they always used to say things about me, Chloe could work harder if she talked a little bit less. Or, she's got great potential, but she doesn't always use it.
Do you think that goes back to the potential ADHD that you were mentioning?
I mean, looking at that now, maybe. But I think as well, it was almost that fitting in thing. I'd rather be having a conversation with someone or being silly. And maybe that's where that came from.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a very natural thing for children to want to be.
Yeah.
They want to be able to fit in. And if chatting with your friends a little bit more does that, then I think most of us will choose to chat to our friends a little more. Now, bringing us, because you've had 2 rather large injuries, so bring me through the first thing that happened.
Yeah, so the first thing that happened was that when I must have been 10, nearly 11. And I've told you about all the exercise I was doing. And I was put into a race, and it was 800 meters running.
Okay.
Followed by 800 meters swimming.
Okay.
Which I did. And it was great, and I loved it. But at the end of it, the back of it was actually my right ankle was sore. So after a few weeks, we went to the doctors, and the doctor said, it looks like you've strained your Achilles, and you need to take some time out. You need to rest. Well, can you imagine what that felt like? I'm 11 years old, doing all those different activities, and I'm being told to rest.
Yeah.
And being a little rebellious Chloe, I didn't really listen to the doctors. So I carried on moving. I'm the kind of person that runs up the stairs 2 at a time. I don't do things slowly. And my ankle got worse and worse to the point where I couldn't put my heel on the floor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So which kind of then forced me to, okay, you are actually going to have to slow down. But it got so bad that we had to, I think we went to see 7 different specialists.
Oh my gosh. That's quite a... What do you think it was that prevented you from slowing down? Was there like a fear associated with it? Was it, in the moments when you weren't being active, was your mind more active? Like, I'm just trying to get into your headspace as to why you couldn't slow down.
I mean, I was 10, I was 11, I was just used to moving all the time. And I suppose that was part of my identity. So when I was asked to stop, I was like, well, if you know any children, you ask them to slow down or walk, they don't do it. So I think I just thought maybe I was invincible.
Yeah.
And this was going to be fine. But as time went by, it definitely wasn't fine.
And I feel like that would be such a blow, because your entire life has been centered around movement and expressing yourself that way. And you're right. Like, at the age of 10, you do feel invincible. Like, you're a child.
Yeah.
like every other moment in your life, I'm sure you just bounced back from things. And do you think that your parents kind of had the same idea that you were potentially invincible and that movement would help? Or how do you think they perceived the injury?
I mean, they were very, very concerned. They were taking me to many different doctors and specialists because I was in a lot of pain, couldn't put my heel on the floor. And so I did gradually reduce the exercise, but it still wasn't getting better.
And what ended up happening? Was
Well,
there a solution or?
I mean, one of the doctors in Harley Street told me, you know, categorically that there's going to be no exercise anymore. I need to have an operation on my back.
Your back?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. But luckily,
Yeah.
we didn't listen to them.
Okay.
And eventually the Olympic swimming team's coach, I don't know how we managed to speak to him, but
Yeah.
I suppose my parents had spoken to various different people to try and find a solution. And he took one look at my leg and just said, that's an Achilles rupture. We need to operate.
So you'd been walking around with an Achilles rupture?
Well, I mean, I'd had my leg, I'd had cortisone injections in it. I'd been on crutches. I started secondary school on crutches.
Oh my gosh.
It was quite harrowing, I suppose, looking back.
And from the point of like running and then swimming the 800 meters to the point of that doctor saying this is a Achilles heel rupture, how long was that period?
6 to 9 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that whole time you were in pain?
I was in pain, and I was also transitioning from primary school to secondary school, which is a massive,
Yes.
you know,
Ordeal.
transformation. Yeah.
Do you remember how you felt at that time?
Starting school?
Just the whole thing. If you could put it in a few words.
I think I just felt quite low. Again, I felt like I was the odd one out. And I felt like I'd lost a little bit of who I was because I couldn't do the things that I like doing.
Definitely. And what happened after the diagnosis of the Achilles rupture?
So after the diagnosis, I had the operation, but the doctors told me, because they'd never ever seen the kind of injury I had in a child, they told me I couldn't ever exercise again.
And how did that make you feel hearing that?
It's strange, isn't it? How when I think back, I can't remember. I can't remember how that felt. But I just know that my life was broken, I suppose. That feeling of being lost, of being confused, and probably quite angry. Like a bit victim mentality. Like, why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve this? It was maybe that kind of feeling.
So a lot of anger. And how did you deal with that?
I think to begin with, I probably went into a lot of, you know, that sort of victim, like, why me, feeling low. And then as time went on, and I can only say this when I look back reflecting on it, is that I kind of replaced that exercise high with drinking alcohol.
Okay.
Probably not the best thing to do, but, you know, I was probably 13, 14 years old, and the people I were hanging around with were doing that, so it seemed like a good idea.
It does at 13 years old, doesn't it? Because, again, it goes back to you want to fit in.
Yeah. And
these people that you were drinking with, were they deemed the cool people in school?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So you're still recovering from this. You're kind of wrapping your head around this massive change in your life. And then you find, would you say it's almost a comfort in these people and this drinking that you start to do?
I don't think it was even comfort. I think it was just a replacement. You know, if you think how many hours I was spending a week dancing and doing gymnastics and swimming and diving, all of a sudden that's just gone.
Yeah.
So it almost became, I had lots of spare time, and that was an opportunity to hang around with some people and maybe meet some new friends, do something different.
Did your parents view this as a positive because you were making new friends?
I don't think so.
No.
No, my parents, I mean, I was the oldest of three girls. And I think that my parents expected a lot of me. So obviously drinking and staying out late and hanging around with maybe the people that weren't going to be my best support.
Yes.
I think my parents were a little bit disappointed, to say the least.
I see. Did they express that with you?
A number of times.
Oh, no. And what would you say?
I mean, what could I say?
Yeah.
You know, I was a bit of a rebellious teenager. I thought I knew best. So, yeah, I remember a time when I was starting my very first part-time job. And it was on a Saturday morning. I was working in a jeans store, you know, like a denim store.
Yeah.
And I'd been out with a friend on the Friday night. And I think we'd been drinking Bacardi in the park.
Fun.
Sounds fun, doesn't it?
Yes.
I ended up being pretty sick and arrived back home. My friend brought me home. And I think I remember my mum opening the front door and just looking at me, and she said, "Just get to bed. We'll talk about this in the morning."
Oh, gosh.
And of course, I woke up the next morning feeling like dreadful. And do you know what my punishment was?
What?
She made me go and do the job.
Good. How did you feel that first shift?
Yeah, it was not fun.
No.
I did not feel proud of myself, but I did do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And did that moment change anything for you? Or did you just keep on your behaviors?
You know, I would love to say, oh, you know, that
it changed everything.
it changed everything, just that ping. But no, definitely not. I carried on making those mistakes and probably abusing myself because
you were trying to fill some void.
I was trying to fill a gap. Yeah.
And bring me to like you kind of the end of high school. What was going on during the end of high school? Were you looking towards going to university, to college? What was kind of your plans at that time?
Yeah. So I think my parents always would have loved me to go to university. And I had a little dream that I wanted to go to university in France because I loved languages.
Yeah.
And that was my dream. However, when I got into sort of being 15, 16, I was rebelling even more. I kind of hate that word rebelling, but I was just pushing the boundaries a little bit. You know, I was starting to go clubbing, probably earning a little bit of money from part-time jobs. And when can you remember that feeling when you earn money for the first time?
Yes.
It's like, oh, wow, I want more of this.
Yes.
So the thought of more study is a bit like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I went to a grammar school. Do you know what that is?
Kind of. Are they better?
Well, I don't know if they're better, but in certain parts of the country, in the UK, you have to pass an exam at age 11.
Okay.
And you go to either a grammar school or a comprehensive. And a grammar school just tends to be slightly more academic.
Okay.
And according to the exam, you may have been in the sort of top 20% academically.
Gotcha.
So I went to an all-girls grammar school, and it was super strict. And you had your skirt had to be a certain length, and it was all very, just
proper.
Very, very proper. Yes. So I really didn't want to go into the sixth form.
Okay.
At 16 because I just felt like I needed a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
And so I went to a local sixth form college and I studied bilingual secretarial.
Oh, very cool.
You say that, but I only lasted, I think, 3 months.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because the idea of college and the reality of college wasn't quite the same.
What was the idea that you had?
I think the idea was, this is going to be fun. I can wear my own clothes. I'm going to meet some really cool people. And the reality was that being left to your own devices when you've been in a really strict environment and you're being chased for work all the time, to all of a sudden just have the freedom to just do your work when you want to. I wasn't really putting the work in.
I see. So almost taking advantage of the situation.
100%.
I see. And did you just stop going? Did you drop out? What was the transition, and what did you do after?
So I dropped out, and my parents helped me find a college in London.
Okay.
I went to London College of Printing.
Okay.
And I can't even remember the course I was doing there, but I started commuting up to Elephant and Castle 3 times a week.
Okay.
And again, that was a massive,
At the age of 16?
Yeah.
That's insane. That's a lot. That's a lot of, at the age of 16, that's so young.
Yeah. So I started doing that, but I can't even remember the course because, I wasn't really, my heart wasn't really in it. And behind the scenes, I was, hanging around with boys. I was partying a bit more. And yes, I ended up dropping out of that college as well.
And did your sisters ever follow the same kind of path as you, being the big sister?
No, my sisters were pretty well behaved compared to me.
But I think a lot of, you say rebellion and you say you don't like that word, so perhaps a lot of your actions were because you didn't have the outlet anymore. Do you think that you hold any blame or resentment against the injury?
Do you know what? If you'd asked me this 10 years ago, I would have maybe given you a different answer. But I understand now, through doing lots of work on myself and personal development, that all those things that have happened to me have made me who I am today. So I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had those experiences. So I don't feel I have any regrets.
That's good. That's good to hear. And so you drop out of college. Where are we at now?
Well, the big elephant in the room at this point is that I'd actually found myself pregnant.
Wow.
So I was going to college in London and I discovered I was pregnant. And I'd just been seeing this guy for a few weeks, found myself pregnant. And by the time I discovered I was pregnant, he was actually going out with someone else that I knew.
Oh my God. How did you feel in that moment?
I felt, I can't remember how I feel, but the feeling in my tummy is just like, just like shock,
dread.
Just dread. Yeah. Shame. Shame. It was like, what? It was kind of like, what am I going to do? Because I didn't want to tell him that I thought I was pregnant, well, that I knew I was pregnant, because I didn't want him to be with me because I was pregnant. I wanted him to be with me because I was me.
So what'd you do?
What did I do? I mean, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I hid my pregnancy.
Wow. From your parents or from him?
Everybody.
And how did that must have been incredibly difficult for you.
Well, lucky enough, it was the late 80s, early 90s. And it was like baggy jeans, puffer jackets.
Okay.
So that's just what I wore.
Yeah.
I wore a bright pink puffer jacket.
Yeah.
And I'm quite small, petite anyway, and I just managed to hide what was happening to my body.
And how did you feel as this was happening to your body? Did you tell anyone?
I think the reason I hid it in the first place was that I told a few girls that I knew that I thought I was pregnant. But by the time, behind my back, they'd gone and told lots of other people.
Oh, that's awful.
Like small town mentality, and everybody knew. So it was like gossip, Chloe's pregnant. So the next time they spoke to me, they asked me, what's happened with, I said, no, it was a false alarm.
I see.
So I didn't really feel like I had anyone to talk to. My sisters were too young. I didn't have that sort of close bond with my mum where I felt able to tell her. So I thought the best option was just to sweep it away and hide it.
Oh my gosh.
Which is crazy thinking of it now. Like,
Yeah.
how on earth did I manage to do that?
I feel sad for that young girl.
Yeah.
It's terrible that you had to go through that and be completely alone in it. Like, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. And during your pregnancy, did you have any form of escape from it? Like, were you able to separate what was happening from your body and focus on other things, or was it all consuming?
I mean, I think it was fairly all consuming.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I was still going out.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to ignore the fact that it was there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But obviously in those moments when I was on my own,
Mm-hmm.
the reality was back again. Like, just like, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So 9 months, what happened?
Well, I think it was about 7 months pregnant.
Okay.
A friend had said to me, you know, if you don't tell your mum, I'm going to tell your mum.
Okay.
And I was too scared, and I think she told my mum. Mm-hmm. It all goes a bit woolly because you can't remember the dates and the times, but she told my parents, and my mum, you know, said let's have a chat. And we drove to a local restaurant and had lunch, my mum and dad and me. Mm-hmm. And you know, they were very supportive of me.
Yeah. Did you expect that?
I don't know what I expect. I don't think I was really thinking rationally at the time, but they were very supportive. And I just then remember the last 2 months of the pregnancy, not sleeping very much. My parents were, you know, feeding me all the right things, and it just felt like I was getting a lot of attention because now it was out in the open. Of course, everybody knew, and that felt a bit intrusive because I was having to face up to all those things that I've been hiding for a very long time.
And do you think people treated you differently after this came out?
I certainly think some of my friends treated me differently. But I think a lot of it was just my perception of what people thought of me. Because as you can imagine, once I actually had a baby, and I looked very young anyway, and I was quite small, and I'm walking around with a pram. And to me, it just felt like everybody I walked past was talking about me. So it was really, I can actually feel it in my body talking about it. You know, it's like your body remembers things, doesn't it? And it's just that feeling of like, oh, you know. So, yeah.
And do you think, because that feeling of like everyone's talking about it, it's such a relatable thing. Like you just feel almost a sense of dread again. It's like, it's something that, I don't know. That would be a difficult thing to like get up every day. And like, I very much commend you for just kind of continuing forward. And even though you had those feelings of being uncomfortable and, you know, wondering what people were saying, you got up and did it anyway. Do you feel proud of the way that you handled the situation after that point?
It's interesting you say that because I think it's only been in the last, if I'm honest, the last probably 3 or 4 years that I can actually see the pride in how I coped. But up until then, it was just a feeling of shame for a very, very long time. But I have learnt now to, again, it's that reflection looking back, and it's like, wow, that was, you know, if somebody else was listening, you know, telling me their story of the same thing, just like, wow, you know, that's...
You did grow up immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's interesting how you can be so kind to others and so hard on yourself. Like an exact same situation could happen to someone else and you would have so much empathy and kindness towards them.
Yes.
And then you just, if it happens to yourself, it's a complete teardown of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you have gotten to a place where you can kind of see yourself through the eyes of others, and that you were able to overcome like such a huge change in your life.
Yeah.
And come out and make something of yourself. Because I think for a lot of people faced with teen pregnancy, it can destroy their lives. And it can make things very difficult. But from what I've done my research on you and that sort of stuff, it seems like you have been able to really thrive.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Yeah. So you have your baby.
Yes.
What did it feel like that day?
I mean,
Painful.
very painful, but I think I was just for the first few months, it was just chaos.
Mm-hmm. As it would be for anyone, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's nobody can prepare you.
No.
Because I think when I was pregnant, I was just thinking, I'm going to have this cute little baby. You look at the mother and baby magazines.
Of course.
It all looks so perfect.
Yeah.
These babies are really clean.
Yeah, they're
and
beautiful.
they're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is not like that.
No.
It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think that I was in a state of turmoil and chaos for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of pains me to say this a little bit, but I didn't fall in love with my baby straight away. I didn't have that like, wow, this is mine. It was a bit like help.
Well, you're probably in shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't blame you at all for that. I think that makes perfect sense. Like, and also you were a baby in yourself.
Yeah.
So did you ever tell the dad? I'm assuming you did, but.
I did.
You did. Once the baby was born? Or were you still pregnant at the time?
Oh, no, just before. Yeah.
Just before.
Yeah.
And how did he take it?
I mean, he was very half-heartedly interested, but he never wanted his name on the birth certificate.
Wow.
He's never supported me or my son in any way, shape or form, financially or emotionally or so.
So just kind of, it just shows you like the stark difference between like that, the incident of you getting pregnant was an equal partnership of that happening. Yeah, he can walk away scot-free.
Yes, and that's definitely we could go a lot deeper on that, couldn't we?
We could. And we won't, because I want to continue with your life. And at this time, were you still living at home?
I was living at home for a little bit.
Okay.
And then I moved into my own place. Yeah.
And how could you financially afford that, and how could you juggle everything?
Oh, I was on benefits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had to supplement my income by doing sort of part-time catering work here and there.
Okay.
Part-time cleaning work. Just grabbing, some work as and when I could around my little boy.
Yeah. So you were doing kind of like the odd jobs.
Yeah.
During the first year or so of your son's life.
Yeah.
At what point did you think to yourself, I'm going to start to maybe sort out a career or sort out, maybe even get back into fitness? Like, at what point did that sort of start happening for you?
Yeah. So I think Kane was about 2 years old.
Okay.
And if you remember, I hadn't exercised because I'd been told I couldn't. And where we lived, we walked, I was with my mum, and I think Kane was in the pushchair. And we walked past an aerobic studio, and it was like a dance studio, and there were women, dancing to music. And I said to my mum, wow, that looks great.
Yeah.
And she just said, why don't you give it a go?
Yeah.
So I don't know the timeline, but I went and gave it a go.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, my ankle was okay. It ached a little bit, but it wasn't like terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was like the catalyst for, wow, maybe I can exercise again.
Yeah.
And so I started going to aerobics classes. And then I remember I had a, do you remember Cindy Crawford?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Cindy Crawford and Elle McPherson used to have workout videos.
Yeah, on the
And
VCR.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny saying video. We don't have videos now.
I know.
It's,
it's so
digitally.
weird.
But yeah, so I'd put that in the TV and and do them at home to keep fit, to kind of lose a bit of the baby weight that I'd gained.
Yeah.
And that was where my love of fitness was like reignited again.
That's amazing. Did you ever, that first class that you went back to, did you have any fear regarding, oh, is my ankle going to be okay? Or were you just so immersed in like the love of it again?
I think there was a little bit of both. I think I was definitely a little bit wary of what would happen if my ankle did flare up again. But the feeling of dancing and moving my body was just so powerful that I just carried on and carried on and carried on. I've never really stopped since.
No, you haven't. And so you find this passion again in moving your body. What does this spark something? Because I know you got your aerobics license, I believe. Yeah, if that's what it's called. I don't know. Is it called an aerobics license?
It's called exercise to music. Yeah,
lovely.
So I think Kane was about 3 years old by now, and I started learning how to be an aerobics instructor. And I spent a couple of weeks up in London at the Central YMCA.
Nice.
And got my qualification.
Yeah, amazing. Do you feel like you were getting bits of yourself back during this time?
100%. Yeah, I was just learning to, moving my body was giving me my identity back. Moving my body was making me feel better in myself. And knowing that I could then teach other people this feeling was incredible.
Definitely. And do you think prior to taking this course and prior to getting back into movement, what was your identity before that?
It was just poor me, Chloe is a single mum.
Yeah. And then now after this, you're like, my identity is someone who can share this beautiful feeling with others.
Yeah.
And you had this power almost.
Yeah, I think that. But also just when you've had a baby and that's quite all consuming, as you can imagine. It was like I was just getting a bit of me back.
Yeah.
So it was something that I could do for me without having to be a mum.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
When like you're always looked at a certain way. It's like, no, here I can be me and 100% me.
Yeah.
So you were now doing the aerobics class, and how long did you do that for? How long were you working there?
I suppose about 10 years.
Amazing.
But not just aerobics. I was then teaching aqua aerobics. I was teaching weight training. I then started teaching Pilates. I was one of the first Pilates teachers way back when. I've been teaching Pilates 30 years now.
So you were doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Were you working at the same gym or the same area?
No, I tended to just go and work in various different clubs.
Okay.
And then I started teaching Pilates in Village Hall, setting up my own classes.
Nice.
And then I went on to, I can't remember the year, it must have been about 14 years ago, I think. I bought a franchise for a boot camp. It was a mixture of nutrition and exercise like 3 times a week. And we guaranteed like drop a dress size.
Yes.
So yeah, that was kind of the next part of the puzzle.
Journey.
Yeah,
of the journey.
Yeah.
So you bought this franchise. How did you remember how much money it was to purchase at the time?
I don't actually.
No. Do you remember feeling like it was a big expense?
It was a big investment, and it was a little bit scary. But I knew that in order to get to the next level of me, I needed a little bit of support.
I see. And how did this franchise pan out?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I think I did it for about 6 years. At the height of it, I probably had about 70 people.
Amazing. And how did it feel to be working for yourself?
Incredible. Yeah. I don't say I'm unemployable, but
Yeah.
I just think that I'm...
That sounds like me.
Really?
Well, I don't know, like, it's difficult to, like, you can't say you're unemployable because then no one will employ you. But, like, I always talk to my boyfriend about this, and like, originally I'm a teacher, so I'm very used to this is my own space. And there isn't a lot of people telling me what to do. So I think that when it comes to being, like, lower on the totem pole and not having as much say, I feel like I almost shut down a little bit. And I think that I have a hard time separating, like, how I personally feel about something versus, like, the reality of the situation. So, like, there have been times when I probably should have shut my mouth and I didn't. And my boyfriend's like, why did you say that? And I'm like, I had to. It was unjust. I had to say something. And of course it doesn't go my way, but
Yeah.
how do you feel you're not employable? Why do you say that?
I just think that I think that time is the biggest commodity that we have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you are working a 9 to 5 or you're working for somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
you're just having to work the hours that they've chosen for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I work for myself, I know that I can be productive in a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once I've got the job done, it's like the job's done. It doesn't have to take me 8 hours to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel when you're working for someone else, sometimes you just have to sit and do what it is until it's time to go. And kind of messes with my brain a little bit.
Do you think that your creativity and, like, your ideas come at certain times of the day? And, like, it's maybe at nighttime or early in the morning that you kind of feel these sparks of...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a real early bird. So,
yeah.
You know, I'm most productive between the hours of sort of like 5 and 10 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's when I can study, I can have great conversations,
Yeah.
You know, I'm feeling alert. Whereas if you asked me to have this interview at like 4 p.m, you wouldn't get the best out of me.
No, it's like, it's my chill time now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, my feet, I'm getting really uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can, I know, your feet go numb, don't they?
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
going to sit on my feet, you know. There's my hip, I was just thinking like, shit, my hip's actually going to break.
Oh, goodness. What time is it, Elliot?
We are at 1:15.
Oh,
lovely.
Wow.
Yeah, it flies by.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Fabulous. Better?
No more. You can see my feet, can't you?
It is not a worry.
Yeah.
It does look like you're just a torso now.
That's okay. She is no longer feet. It's just the top half of Chloe now. Yeah. Fabulous. All right. So where were we? You're doing the boot camp for roughly 6 years.
Yeah.
And prior to this, were you also kind of self-employed because you were bouncing around different gyms and that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always really been self-employed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that come with a bit of fear, do you think?
It was all I ever knew.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's cool that you just went into that, because I think that takes a lot of bravery, especially when you had this little person relying on you. Do you think you had a lot of self-belief?
I think I had a lot of determination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I had the self-belief, but I just had determination.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I always wanted to be working smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm. And dive into that for me. What do you mean by that?
Well, so if I was teaching an aerobics class, they would pay me, you know, £25-30 an hour. Mm-hmm. If I was going to go and work in an office, I might have to work, you know, 3 hours to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it all comes back to that time.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, how can you best use your time? And especially when you had, you know, your child at home, time was very important.
Limited, yeah.
Yeah. So after the boot camp that you were doing, what was kind of the next step? Was there a reason why you stopped it? Was there another opportunity that came up?
Well, sadly, I wish there was another opportunity, but actually I had another Achilles rupture on the other leg.
Stop. Oh my God. That's horrendous.
Yeah. I was
How did that even happen? How did that come about?
So I just had a major breakup.
Okay.
So again, with that self-reflection, I was probably very stressed. And I decided that it was a really good idea to get myself in the best possible shape. Even though I was already in good shape. So I started training with a PT. And I remember one day he asked me to sprint with a band around my tummy.
Oh, and he would like hold it?
Yeah. And we were doing that in the gym. And all of a sudden there was a noise like, yeah. And I turned around and I just said, Martin, why did you kick me? And he said, that wasn't me. That was your leg. And when he said that, I knew in an instant that was my Achilles had gone.
Oh my God. Did you feel pain?
I felt pain.
Yeah.
And then I crumpled on the floor in tears.
Oh my God.
And because again, my brain was going back to that previous time. It's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get home? Blah, blah, blah. But again, the adrenaline took over like it often does in a shock situation. I drove home. I don't know how I drove home.
Oh my God. How did you even get up? Oh my
I just
word.
hobbled out of there. And my mum came to meet me at the hospital.
Yeah.
And a junior doctor said to me, oh, that's not an Achilles rupture, it's just a sprain. She said, go home, massage it, and
my God.
You should be okay in a few days. But when I woke up the next morning, my leg was black.
Oh my God.
And I just knew. I think intuition is, I really know myself. And I think intuition's a really powerful thing if you listen to it. So I went back down to the GP and she said, it looks like an Achilles rupture.
Oh
So
my God.
another operation. But I was determined this time, like, this is not going to stop me. So I'm happy to say that I really proved the doctors wrong. I was back in the gym within 2 weeks.
Wow.
I was crawling from machine to machine doing my upper body stuff.
Yeah.
And I climbed Ben Nevis sort of 6 months later.
Wow.
So I was just, it was a little bit of proving to myself that I could do it and I could overcome this. And I did.
And here we are today.
Here we are today.
You ran up my 6 flights of stairs.
With a weighted vest
Yes,
on.
with a weighted vest. We can't forget that. And after the operation, was the advice the same that you had gotten as a child?
No.
No, what was the advice?
The advice was, rest for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then just be careful, have some physio. I sort of documented on social media all my recovery because I was so proud that I was able to actually move. And I always try and inspire other people that, just because you're in a certain situation doesn't mean that you have to look at it a certain way.
It doesn't mean you'll always be there either.
Yeah.
It's so from the first Achilles rupture to the second, how many years?
30 years.
30 years. So it's just amazing, like, how much of an advancement, even the second time that it happened. But it's also insane that it happened twice. Like, the second time, did you go through that, like, victim cycle?
Maybe for 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty resilient these days. And all the work I've done on mindset and... thinking about your future, it's like, this is just temporary. What can we do? Rather than thinking, what can't we do? It's like, what can I do? I can eat well. What can I do? I can rest. What can I do? I can train my upper body. Rather than, poor me, why has this happened? It's not fair.
Yeah. And during this time, you said you were posting on social media.
Yeah.
Were you getting any responses? Were people resonating with your story?
Oh, a huge amount. Yeah. I think my first video got like 5,000 views or something like that. Yeah.
Amazing. And how did that feel?
Well, it's always nice to to know that people are listening. But even more for me, it's not around the likes, it's around if I can just impact one person to see their life in a different way or see their obstacle in a different way, then my job is done.
And you said that you climbed, what did you climb?
Ben Nevis, which is the, you probably don't know what that is.
No, I don't.
So it's the biggest mountain in Scotland.
Oh, okay. And how long did that take you?
I think it took us about 5 hours to climb up. But because my leg was like strapped at an angle, because I couldn't flex so much, it took me about 7 hours to get down, I think.
Oh my God.
But it was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever done.
Do you think that's probably, like, physically, what do you think is your biggest accomplishment physically?
Oh, that'd probably be my bodybuilding competition.
Yeah. Because, the age of 47, you competed in the first in your first one. Yeah. So from the time your second Achilles rupture, when did that happen?
What, the bodybuilding? It's like 6 years later.
6 years. And what sparked that interest?
So I think I work in the field of life coaching and NLP and helping people to reach their goals and change their life and think about themselves differently. So I think that the bodybuilding competition, I love. To me, when you push yourself out of your comfort zone, what it does is it's not that you've achieved that thing. It's just that everyday life becomes a little bit easier.
Interesting.
So, for instance, like climbing up a mountain with my foot not fully recovered meant that if I have to walk up like your stairs today, it's a breeze. So if I can hone my body at the age of 47 and watch everything I eat and train really well for a long time, it means that just going to the gym is nothing. So it's about the comfort zone. It wasn't about the competition. It was about just pushing myself to see if I could.
And you did.
I did.
Third place.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. And so after your Achilles rupture, what was the next path of work that you dived into?
Yeah. So after my Achilles rupture, I took a job. I took a couple of jobs. The first one was working in a really luxury hairdressers as their front of house.
Okay.
And I think I lasted there just about 6 months.
Yeah. What made you leave?
There was a lot of rules. You had to have your hair a certain way. You had to wear lipstick all the time.
I see.
I'm a pretty natural girl, and it just felt like too many rules. Again, it's sort of there's
breaking free,
rebellious. Just like I need to get out of this. So that was the first job, and the next job was I was an estate agent for a while.
Okay.
Because I think after the Achilles rupture, I'm thinking maybe my body is telling me like I shouldn't be using it as much as I was. So at that point, I had got into coaching and the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is helping people to think about their language, how they're talking to themselves so they can make changes. Yeah, I was doing the NLP, so that was what I moved on to next.
So were you doing the estate agent and the NLP at the same time?
Yes, I was doing a little bit of coaching alongside the estate agent work. But when I moved to Brighton 5 years ago, I just went all in on the coaching.
And tell me, what was your first experience with coaching? Why did it become something that you wanted to do?
So when I was running the boot camp, I was helping people to make changes to their life through nutrition. And I was noticing that some people would just do as they were told. Yeah. And other people were coming up against blockages. And they were self-sabotaging. They were not able to follow certain things. And it was at that point that I realised I needed to help people with their mind, because I really sounds really like woo-woo, doesn't it, helping people with their minds? But I actually think if you can get control of your mind and your thoughts, then everything else just flows. So that was the thought process. And previous to that, I'd dabbled with coaching myself. So I'd had a few coaches. I had a business coach. I'd been to Ireland on an amazing course called the Happiness Habit and learnt around your internal language, setting goals that meant things to you. So I was sort of in that realm, but it was just when I really decided to take the leap and make it my everything.
Yeah. Did you feel, because I think something that I struggle with a lot is feeling like where I am in my career is enough. And I feel like I'm always searching for more. Do you think when you found, like, have you ever experienced that feeling?
Do you know what? I haven't had that myself per se.
Yeah.
But I think that lots of people I coach come up against that. And I think that maybe it's from, you know, our parental figures have told us, well, you know, like, for instance, my dad, you know, well, yeah, but you'd be great, you can go to university. And, you know, maybe we think internally we should get to a certain age where we have kids, or, you know, we're expected to buy a house at a certain age. And I think maybe that's what you're talking about. It's like societal pressures on what we should do and how our life should look.
Yep. You're constantly fighting against it. And when you were, what exactly is the difference between, because when I was researching you, you were asked the question, therapy versus coaching. Can you break that down for me?
Yeah, so therapy tends to be so if you came to me and I was a therapist, I'd help you really look back and think about why you were a certain way. So it's lots of sort of delving into the past. Coaching tends to be like you're presenting yourself in front of me right now. And although we might look back, it's much more around your future. So it's about using your imagination about where you could go, what life could look like. It's looking for like possibilities rather than, well, I am this way and I've always felt like this. It's like, yeah, but imagine what, you know, imagine where your podcast could go. In the best possible scenario. So it's helping people to really expand their vision.
That's amazing. It's very positive. I'm not always the most positive person, so that's very positive. So did you kind of establish your own business at this point? Because is this where kind of Coach Chloe came to be at this point?
Yeah, Coach Chloe came about it's probably about 10 years ago when I was actually working at the boot camp. So I was teaching the boot camp in person, but behind the scenes I was helping people online to create changes. So yeah, Coach Chloe was born 10 years ago.
Wow, amazing. A decade long. It's interesting because from what I'm hearing from our conversation here, it seems like your path was not linear. And I think that that's what I'm realizing is that like the whole point of this podcast is to kind of break down people's successes. So we can look at someone like yourself as someone who is super successful, runs her own business, helps people every single day, but we don't see everything that it took behind the scenes. And you have been almost honing the skill your entire life. And it's interesting from my perspective, you know, I always get very frustrated when I compare myself to people because I think, why aren't I there yet? And the whole point of this podcast is to show that literally no one can just be there. It's always like a gradual growth into who you'll eventually become. And like, I'm like trying to like pinpoint, oh, when did you do this? When did you do that? But it seems like you've always been doing it. There's always been like overlap in the things that you do.
Yeah.
How do you juggle it all? How do you balance it? I know you don't like life balance. You say that's silly.
No, I don't think there's ever a balance with anything. I just think it's like a pushing and a pulling.
Yeah.
But I think social media, especially these days, has such a massive part to play in. We look at people, don't we? And again, you think, oh wow, she or he is so successful. But because people don't share their struggles enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually think for me that all those struggles that I had in the past, like bringing up a baby virtually by myself, having 2 injuries, is built me into who I am today, because I've learnt resilience. I've recognised that, time is the most important commodity there is. And I've also recognised that just doing the simple things really well and building that really basic word of consistency is just where it's at. I know you're Canadian, but in the UK, everybody wants the quick fix. Everybody wants it yesterday.
Oh, it's the same in Canada.
But the beauty is that recognizing, how we can just gradually evolve and that consistency builds. And then one day you can look back and go, oh, yeah, I have done this.
And looking at the NLP and kind of the self-talk, how do you speak to yourself to be able to do those things? Like, how do you prevent yourself from being bogged down from the distractions of everything?
Yeah. It was amazing, actually. I was having a conversation with one of my clients this morning, and he is struggling with self-talk and berating himself a lot of the time, calling himself really bad names. And the thing is, our brain hears that and then gives us more of it. So I spent a lot of my life, saying, oh, you're an idiot. Yeah. You're useless. Yeah. But, and you're not going to like this, but the only way to get better at anything is just, the first step is awareness. So it's listening to that voice. It's like, what am I saying to myself? And then taking a pause and thinking about, okay, what can I say instead? And that's how I've learnt to really shift my mindset and my thinking and my behaviour. So that's what it boils down to eventually. And I think that it's a bit like when you go to the gym and you want to build a muscle, you've got to put in the reps.
Yeah.
It's the same with making a podcast. You've got to keep doing it time and time again until it's refined and you've got it how you want it. And it's the same with the self-talk. Unfortunately, there's no magic.
There's never a magic. A little snap of the fingers, is there?
No, but it's a bit like when you're decorating a room, isn't it? Yeah. Like if you just clicked your fingers and could change your room, you wouldn't appreciate it.
It wouldn't mean anything to you.
It wouldn't mean anything. Yeah. There we go. But when you actually take the time and then you practice it and then it becomes who you are, and then you can feel yourself evolving, that's where the magic is.
That's amazing. So bring me to today. What is Chloe doing? What does our daily kind of life look like? Or is it always different?
Yeah. So I think I thrive on not balance, but doing different things every day. So I have really strong rituals in place that support my mental health and my physical health. So I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. I study for about an hour when I wake up.
What do you study?
At the moment, I'm studying functional breath.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, which is amazing for focus, longevity, and health.
So you're focusing, so this morning you were doing your studies on functional breathing.
Yeah.
What's the next step?
So I'll do that, and then I will do 10 minutes of breath work, a little bit of meditation, drink some water, and that's how my day begins.
It seems very peaceful. It's a peaceful thing.
I think I feel it just helps me with the rest of my day when I know that I've prioritise myself first thing in the morning. And the last hour before I go to bed, it's like no phone, some incense burning.
Lovely. Read
a little bit, do some more meditation, and write in my journal.
And what time do you go to sleep at night?
At the moment, about 8:30.
Oh my God. How See, this is my issue. How do you, like, how can you go to sleep at 8:30? I like feel like I can't. Like, I suppose I'm in a different stage of life than you, but like feels like if I want to socialize or if I want to do anything, it's always after 8. I honestly don't eat dinner up till about 9.
Really?
Yeah, so I've tried to wake up at 5, but it's like a zombie getting out of bed. Like I physically can't do it. So do you think everyone needs to wake up at 5 in the morning?
No, not at all.
No.
I think it's, like you said, it's the age and stage of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking at, what time you want to wake up
Mm-hmm.
or what time you go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to manipulate that sort of time. The best thing,
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted some advice on that,
Yeah.
would be to try and go to bed
Mm-hmm.
and wake up within the same hour all 7 days of the week.
Okay.
So if you go to bed at like 11 p.m,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
always between 10 and 11, all through the week, Monday to Friday,
Mm-hmm.
Monday to Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and waking up between like 6 and 7.
Okay.
So that you're building your circadian rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
and your body's getting used to that. So when we have lay-ins and late nights and it's discombobulated.
Yeah, that's where things kind of go a little wonky.
Yeah.
And at this moment in time, are you 100% self-employed?
I'm 100% self-employed, yeah.
That's amazing. So we're self-employed. That is where I want to be one day in my life. Do you, and again, if you're not comfortable answering this, you don't have to, but do you feel financially secure in the place that you are?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have fears that just working for yourself won't be enough?
Actually, never.
No.
No, I think that I really believe in what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also believe that if I can imagine what I want,
Mm-hmm.
and I can put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get it back.
Yeah.
So I try and, again, it's not focusing on the fear, it's
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the possibility.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I think even as we are talking, you can see how I hold so much fear and you don't. I'm sure you have fear in certain areas of life, but like, I think even what you were saying about like your parents and society and stuff, I think I do hold a lot of fear of like, am I not going to be good enough? Am I not going to get to where I need to be? And like, even when I'm in the classroom, one of my reasons why I don't want to be a teacher is because like, I feel like I'm squashing my potential or something. And like all these children are around me and I'm just like feeding into their potential. And while I love it, and perhaps I'll do it one day, it's like, I feel like there's something more, do you know? And like, if someone were to come to you and say those words to you, what would you say to them?
So say the words again.
I feel like if I go down the teaching avenue,
Yeah.
that I'll be like squashing some sort of potential. Like I don't know if it's like self-involved of me to say this, but I feel like I'm destined for more. And it's that feeling is slowly getting weaker.
The feeling of wanting more.
Of feeling like I'm destined for more. Feels like, and now with this podcast, I think it's like coming back a little bit, but like for a while there, I was like squashing it down and trying to be like the teacher and trying to do all these things.
Yeah.
But like, is it self-absorbed of me to be like, I feel like there's more out there for me?
Not at all.
Yeah.
You've got to look at that possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I said many times today, time is the only thing we have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I always would ask you the question,
Mm-hmm.
will you regret not doing something else?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would that look like?
Yeah. It's a good question to ask. And tell us a little bit about, actually, no, first, before we can, I have 3 more questions, I think.
Okay.
What is your proudest self-coaching moment?
My proudest self-coaching.
Or sorry, coaching moment. Yeah, like, so when you've had your business and when you've had Coach Chloe, what has your proudest moment been through that journey?
With a client?
Perhaps, or just in general.
Yeah, I think my proudest moment is, there's been so many of them. It's when I've worked with someone one-to-one, and you speak to them at the end of the time together, and you can just see how they've transformed, evolved as a person, and they've learnt to see themselves in a different light. And that's not through anything I've done. It's just the questions I've asked that have allowed that person to, like you just said, think a little bit bigger, dream a little bit more. And I think that, again, society can hold us in boxes a lot of the time. But, you know, it's like, who says you can't do this? You know, why not give it a go? What's the impact of not doing it? So I think it's, I think every client I've worked with, it's just powerful seeing people's potential.
It's like that revelation that they finally believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Do you bring a lot of these mindsets into your parenting?
Into my parenting? Well, you know, my children are 32 and 25 now.
Gotcha.
So way back when I had them, I wasn't the positive person I am now. But when I do see my children, I think they probably think I'm a little bit of a, you know, evangelist now. I'm a little bit of a, you know, self-development freak, but there we go.
Hey, it's benefiting you, and it's benefiting people around you. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And my last question for today is, where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? Are there any goals you have for your business, for yourself personally?
Amazing question. So thank you for that. But I think my biggest wish for the next 5 to 10 years is that I get to impact more people. So I'm going to be doing more speaking events. I've given myself a big scary goal of doing a TED Talk within a year.
Oh, and how are you going to achieve that?
How am I going to achieve that? Well, I've told you.
Yeah. So now it's in the books. It has to happen.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that when I say to people I'm going to do something and I say it out loud, I'm not going to let people down. So that will happen. I just want to impact more people, and my mission is really to show people that if they can really simplify their life, whether that be their health, their thinking, or their goals, it doesn't have to be complicated. Simplify it, strip it back, make it easier, build on the basics and build that consistency, and just they can fly whatever they want to do.
Amazing. And where can our listeners find you?
Okay, so my website is www.coachchloe.uk and Instagram at coachchloe1.
Beautiful. Well, we will see you again on your TED Talk in 1 year from now.
Yes.
I'm very excited. Perhaps we can have a little catch up after you've done that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much for going on today.
Thank you for having me. It was amazing.
Lovely. That was awesome. Good job. Yeah, it was fabulous. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Do you?
Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and leave a comment or rating, as it really helps us grow. You'll find any relevant resources in the description below, including details about our guest, links to anything we mention, and our application if you'd like to be a guest on Seasoned Professional. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a part of our community, and I cannot wait to see you next week. Bye-bye.